The courtroom doors creaked open and the whispers died instantly. In stepped Jennifer Lopez, but not the polished icon from red carpets or Super Bowl stages. This was someone else, tense, silent, her eyes fixed straight ahead, her jaw clenched. Like steel, she walked slowly to the witness stand, every step echoing like a countdown. You could feel the shift. This wasn't celebrity gossip. This was something heavier, something real. The judge leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "You may proceed." A young female prosecutor stood, voice calm, razor sharp. "Miss Lopez," she began, "we understand this is difficult, but for the record, can you describe your relationship with Mr. Sean Combs during the years 1999 to 2001? J.Lo didn't speak at first. She scanned the room, hesitating. In the gallery, Sean Diddy Combs sat completely still. Time held its breath. Then came her voice, soft, fragile, almost breaking. "I was in love with him," she said. "But I didn't know what love really was back then." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story like this again. Now back to that courtroom. A gasp rolled through the chamber like thunder. The judge struck his gavel once he ordered, but it was too late. The energy had already changed. Everyone could feel it. The prosecutor took a small step forward. "Miss Lopez, were you aware of Mr. Combs' business associations at the time?" The people around him. Jennifer gave a small, slow nod. Her mouth tightened. "I knew enough to know I had to act like I didn't." Murmurs again. The court reporter's fingers tapped faster. "Then, you were present the night of the December 1999 shooting at Club New York?" Her hand trembled. She dabbed her lips with a tissue. "Yes," she whispered, "but I wasn't supposed to be." Now the room stirred. People leaned in. Some eyes widened. Others just nodded like old rumors had just been confirmed. J.Lo lowered her gaze to her lap and continued. "That night changed everything," she said. "I remember the screaming, the gunshots, the blood, but what I remember most was the silence that followed." She paused. "Then, Diddy told me to keep quiet. He said, 'If you love me, you'll handle this like a queen,' so I did." You could have heard a pin drop. The judge glanced at the defense table, but Diddy didn't flinch. Still cold, expressionless. Just as the prosecutor opened her mouth again, Jennifer turned to the jury. Her voice cracked. "You don't know what it's like to be in love and afraid at the same time. That was my life." The judge cleared his throat. "We'll resume after a short recess," but nobody moved. Not really. Because for the first time, they weren't looking at Jennifer Lopez, the star. They were looking at Jennifer Lopez, the survivor. After the recess, the air hadn't settled. If anything, it was tighter, more electric. Reporters outside were already typing like wildfire. Inside, Jennifer sat again, this time leaning forward, white-knuckled, gripping the edge of the witness stand. The prosecutor stood. "Miss Lopez, thank you. Let's return to the aftermath of that night. What happened after you and Mr. Combs left Club New York?" J.Lo inhaled, steadied herself. "We got into a black SUV. He didn't speak at first. Just stared at his phone. Then he looked at me and said, 'We're going to be all right. You just gotta trust me.'" She paused. Her voice dropped to a whisper, "But I didn't feel all right. I didn't feel safe." And that was when I realized I wasn't in control of anything. The courtroom was frozen. Not a cough, not a shift, just eyes turning toward Diddy, whose face remained unreadable. The prosecutor moved in. "Did he tell you what to say to police?" Jennifer nodded. "He told me to say nothing. He said it was all being handled." She exhaled. "And later, some man I didn't even know called me. He said I'd be taken care of if I stayed loyal." What did that mean to you? It meant My silence was worth more than the truth. A juror fidgeted. Another scribbled notes. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't PR. This was testimony, under oath. And it was tearing down everything people thought they knew. Did you ever want to go to the police? The prosecutor asked. J.Lo's eyes glassed over. Yes, she said. I did, but I also knew. The world doesn't believe women like me. I was the Latina pop star. He was the powerful black mogul. If I spoke up, I'd be called dramatic, disloyal, or worse, disposable. She took a shaky breath. I told my mother once. I told her I didn't feel safe. She begged me to leave, but I was already too deep. I was afraid. Silence. The prosecutor turned to the judge, then to the gallery. Let the record show that Miss Lopez has testified to repeated patterns of emotional coercion, loyalty driven by fear, and third-party intimidation. But Jennifer wasn't finished. She faced the jury again. I stayed silent for over 20 years. Not because I had nothing to say, but because saying it would change everything. And now it already has. And just like that, the courtroom shifted again. Not in noise, but in truth, because for the first time, people didn't see Jennifer Lopez the headline. They saw the woman who lived through what she never asked. FOR. The courtroom lights gave off a faint buzz as the next round of questioning began. The prosecutor flipped through a thick folder, then carefully pulled out a collection of photographs. Grainy, aged, each one stamped with police evidence codes. One by one, they were handed to the judge, then turned toward the jury. In every image, Jennifer Lopez stood beside Sean Combs, smiling, arm in arm. But beneath the bright expressions, something else lived. Something colder, something that looked practiced. The prosecutor turned to her. Do you recognize these? Jennifer didn't even glance down. Yes, she said. Every single one. Where were they taken? Her voice was calm, but low. Private parties, industry events, but some of them weren't meant for public eyes. That caught the jury's attention. Even the gallery shifted. Jennifer looked down for a moment, then spoke again. There were these gatherings. Diddy called them family nights, but they weren't family, and they weren't innocent. She paused. Phones were taken at the door. There were celebrities, executives, women I never saw again after those nights. She glanced at the photos. It was like entering another world. And once you stepped in, you never talked about it. Not ever. The prosecutor leaned in. Are you saying there were things at these events that made you uncomfortable? Jennifer blinked once, slowly. I was terrified, she whispered. I watched people change in those rooms. Smiles disappeared when doors closed. Laughter that didn't match the moment. And whispers, always whispers. There were rooms you weren't supposed to enter. She swallowed hard. And Diddy, he didn't have to say a word. Everyone just knew. He ran it all. A soft gasp slipped from someone in the back. The judge glanced toward the gallery, but allowed it? The prosecutor took a slow step forward. Were you ever asked to invite people to these gatherings? Jennifer nodded. Sometimes it was casual. Bring your girls. Or, she's cute, bring her next time, but it wasn't. Casual. Not really. She tightened her hands on the stand. It felt strategic. Like I was the bait. Like my presence made everything seem safe. If J.Lo was there, how bad could it be? Did you ever witness anything illegal? The prosecutor asked. Jennifer hesitated. Then her voice cracked. There was one night. A girl not even 20 stumbled out of a room. She was crying. Her dress was torn. She couldn't even speak. Jennifer took a breath, shaking slightly. I tried to help her, but Diddy looked at me and said, she'd be fine. She knows the rules. The silence in that courtroom was absolute. Jurors frozen, jaws clenched, eyes stunned. Jennifer wiped at her cheek before going on. After that, I stopped bringing people. I got quieter. I began to pull away. Her voice grew heavy, and that's when the control got worse. He guilted me, told me I wasn't loyal, said I didn't support his vision. That's what he always called it, his vision, but it felt more like a nightmare. The prosecutor looked to the judge briefly, then turned back to Jennifer. Miss Lopez, did anyone ever try to protect you? She shook her head. No one could, because Diddy wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable. Money, lawyers, connections. People were afraid. Her voice fell to a whisper. I was afraid. The silence now was different. It wasn't shock. It was realization. Every word she spoke pulled another thread loose, unraveling the perfect public illusion that had lasted for decades. This wasn't Hollywood drama. This wasn't TMZ. This was real, and it had stayed hidden until now, even. The judge, who had remained expressionless most of the day, looked uneasy. The room felt colder. The prosecutor approached again, this time with a different folder, handwritten letters, each one sealed in a plastic evidence sleeve. Miss Lopez, she said gently, we recovered these from your former residence. They're dated between 1999 and 2001. Can you confirm, are these in your handwriting? Jennifer reached forward, her hand trembling. She pulled out the first letter, her breath caught. Yes, she whispered. I wrote all of them. Were they ever sent? She shook her head. No, I didn't have anyone I could say these things to, so I wrote to myself, to God, to no one. The prosecutor unfolded the first page and began to read. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, like I've been edited out of my own life. Just a figure beside him, smiling on cue. I want out, but I'm scared of what out even means. The room didn't move. No pen scratched, no feet shifted. Jennifer looked down, blinking back tears. That was after the third time he accused me of disloyalty, she said softly. All I did was ask where he'd gone at 3 a.m. He slammed the door so hard it cracked the glass. Her voice firmed. I started to realize love shouldn't feel like walking barefoot over glass. The prosecutor opened another letter. I saw things I can't unsee, heard things I shouldn't have heard, and now I wonder if staying silent makes me guilty too. The words hit the room like thunder. One juror shifted. Someone in the gallery wiped their eyes. Jennifer's hands were tightly clasped. She spoke again, unprompted. I just wanted someone to tell me it wasn't normal, that I wasn't crazy, but everyone around me kept saying I had it all, that I was lucky. She paused, and I started to believe them until the silence became too loud to ignore. The prosecutor walked to the final page. This one's undated. Do you remember writing it? Jennifer read it slowly, then closed her eyes and nodded. That was the night I packed my bags. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Permission to read the final excerpt. Granted. The courtroom braced itself. If I stay, I'll lose myself. If I leave, I'll lose everything. I just want my life back. Not the fame, not the headlines. Just peace. Jennifer wiped a tear. That night, I chose peace. For a moment, everything stopped. The jury wasn't just listening anymore. They were absorbing. The gallery wasn't just watching. They were witnessing. And Jennifer Lopez wasn't retelling the past. She was reclaiming it. The prosecutor stepped back, her voice soft. No further questions at this time, Your Honor, but the silence that followed wasn't closure, it was a warning. Everyone in that courtroom felt it. This was far from over. Something had shifted. What began as testimony now felt like something heavier. Like layers of silence were being peeled back, one memory at a time. The judge adjusted in his seat, signaling the next exhibit. A series of voicemails, time-stamped, archived, preserved. And then played out loud. The sound that filled the room wasn't static. It was a man's voice. Low, familiar, unmistakable. Diddy, you think you can walk away from me and not pay for it? You owe me. John, don't forget who made you. If you talk, it's not just your name on the line. It's your whole family. His words cut through the room like a blade. No one spoke. The jury didn't move, but you could feel the tension stretch tight. As Wire. Jennifer didn't react. She'd heard these threats before, too many times, but now, the entire world was hearing them too. The prosecutor turned slowly toward her. Miss Lopez, were those messages sent to you? She nodded once, barely audible. Yes, after I left him. And how did they make you feel at the time? Jennifer inhaled slowly, then answered, voice steady. They made me afraid to answer my own phone. For almost a year, I lived in constant fear. I changed my number, moved apartments, hired private security. I was always looking over my shoulder. She looked out toward the gallery. People said I was being paranoid, dramatic. But when someone says they made you, you believe they can destroy you too. The prosecutor nodded, then walked to the monitor. On screen, a folder of video stills. Private moments never meant for the public. Award shows, studio sessions, island parties. In every frame, Diddy's hand on Jennifer's back, his grip firm, his presence always close. These were recovered from private archives, the prosecutor explained. Were they ever published? Jennifer shook her head. No, he controlled everything. The photographers, the edits. Nothing left his orbit without his sign-off. She paused. He wasn't just building a brand. He was building a story, and I was a character in it whether I agreed or not. The jury leaned in, not to see scandal, but to understand how carefully the truth had been hidden. Miss Lopez, the prosecutor asked, did you ever try to tell anyone what was happening? Jennifer looked ahead. Once, she said, I told someone, a director. I said I didn't feel safe. She took a breath. The next day, Diddy called me. He already knew. Her voice tightened. He said I needed to learn the rules of the industry. And I remember thinking, what rules? And who wrote them? She looked down. I learned fast. Silence was the rule. Survival was the prize. The screen flicked again. A still image from an unreleased music video. Jennifer's eyes red from crying. A makeup artist fixing her face mid-shot. Diddy standing behind her, whispering something in her ear. Caption. Unreleased footage -2,000. The prosecutor stepped aside. No further exhibits at this time, but the jury didn't look away. Not yet. Jennifer broke the silence herself. I spent years running from her, that version of me. The one who smiled when told, who danced on cue, who stayed silent when it mattered most. She looked down at her hands, but silence is its own prison. And today, I'm walking out. There was no gavel, no reaction, just that stillness again. The kind that follows something real. Something too heavy to ignore. Jennifer sat unmoving, but somehow she filled the entire room. The facade was gone. All that remained was truth, and the world wasn't seeing a pop star anymore. They were seeing a woman who'd endured a private war. While the cameras rolled, the prosecutor stepped forward one last time. Miss Lopez, before cross-examination begins, is there anything else you'd like to say? Jennifer looked at the judge, then turned to the jury. She adjusted the microphone. And this time, she didn't speak with fear. She spoke with resolve. I spent years making excuses for him, for what I saw, for how I was treated. I told myself love was supposed to be messy. That silence meant loyalty. She paused, but that wasn't love. That was control wrapped in devotion. Her voice echoed, there's something I need you to understand. This industry doesn't reward truth, it rewards power. And he had all of it. She pointed not physically, but emotionally straight at the system. He knew which headlines to call, which story to plant, how to vanish someone's career, their reputation, their safety. Jennifer paused. You speak out. You disappear. The prosecutor stepped back, letting her continue. I know people wonder why I stayed, why I didn't run. She looked at Diddy just feet away. When someone owns the keys to your future, your safety, your identity, you don't feel like you can run. Her voice softened. You made me believe I was nothing without you, that no one would believe me, that my silence was my only shield. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. You were wrong. A hush spread through the room like breath being held. I wasn't afraid of losing fame. I was afraid of losing myself. The gallery gasped. Even the court reporter paused just for a second. Jennifer's hands trembled, but she kept going. You used power to erase people. You bought loyalty with fear. But I'm not afraid anymore. Her voice rose, still steady. I built who I was before you, and I rebuilt who I am after you. Tears in her eyes, but her voice clear. I'm not on this stand for revenge. I'm here because truth is the only thing I have left, and maybe, just maybe, someone watching this, someone who feels trapped like I once did, will know they're not alone. The judge turned to the defense table. Defense may now proceed, but no one moved, because in that moment, nothing else mattered. No objection, no cross, no headline. The truth had landed, and it wasn't going anywhere. The defense attorney stood, not rushed, not rattled. Every movement was precise, his suit pressed to perfection, his face unreadable. He approached the stand with a practiced calm, a soft voice, a tight smile, rehearsed, confident, controlled. But Jennifer Lopez wasn't the same woman who'd taken that stand hours earlier. Her voice was steady, her shoulders squared. She had nothing left to hide, and nothing left to fear. Miss Lopez, he began smoothly, you've given us a dramatic account today, but isn't it true that, in 1999, you chose to remain in a relationship with Mr. Combs? Oh, even after the club shooting. She didn't flinch. I chose survival, she said. That's what women do when every door without him is closed before they even knock. A quiet ripple passed through the gallery. The attorney didn't blink. And yet, he continued, during that relationship, your career soared. Endorsements, film roles, album deals. Would you say you benefited from your connection to Mr. Combs? Jennifer leaned forward. Would you call it a benefit? She asked. If you had to trade your voice for visibility, your peace for protection, I didn't benefit. I bargained. The attorney paused just for a moment before shifting tactics. You say he manipulated you. But you're a grown woman, Miss Lopez, successful, resourced. Why not walk away sooner? Her eyes narrowed, cold, controlled, cutting. Because power doesn't always come with chains. It comes with fear, with silence, with the voice in your head saying, no one will believe you, that the moment you speak, you disappear. She turned to the jury now. You see me as strong, unbreakable, but back then, I was 29, draped in diamonds and dread. I couldn't breathe without permission. I smiled for the cameras while dying inside. The defense attorney adjusted his stance, tone cooler now. He fired again. Miss Lopez, do you recall telling the press in 2000 that Mr. Combs was a visionary, a genius, and someone you deeply admire? Yes, she said without hesitation. I said that. Just like victims say they're fine when their ribs are cracked. I said what I needed to survive. Because no one listens when you scream, if you're still smiling. Then came the final strike. Is it your testimony today, he asked, that Mr. Combs made you feel threatened? Controlled? Jennifer didn't even blink. Her voice lowered, but each word landed like thunder. He made me feel trapped. Like if I ever chose myself, I'd lose everything. He didn't need to raise his hand. He raised a reality where silence was the only currency that kept me safe, and just like that, the courtroom froze. That was the moment, the crack in the narrative. The line that split truth from performance. One juror gasped. The judge's face tightened. Even the reporters lowered their pens. And across the aisle, Diddy blinked, his jaw set. For a fraction of a second, the mask slipped, because what she just said wasn't defense. It wasn't strategy. It was truth. Undeniable, uncheckable, etched into the record. The air in the room changed. Thicker now, still, like the walls themselves were listening. The judge nodded to the prosecution, a silent cue for the final question. This time, the prosecutor didn't bring a binder. No exhibits, just one sheet of paper. And a voice that carried weight not with power, but with respect. "Miss Lopez," she said gently, "before we conclude, this isn't about the club. It's not about the tapes, not even about the career." Jennifer sat up, calm, centered, her hands folded, her gaze steady. "What do you want this jury and the world to understand from your testimony today?" She didn't rush. She took a breath, the kind you take before telling the truth that costs everything. "I want them to understand that image is a lie." Her voice was soft but sharp. "For years, people looked at me and said, 'She's so lucky. She's with the king of hip-hop. She's on top of the world.'" She paused, but behind every necklace was a silence I never agreed to. Behind every red carpet smile was a locked bathroom door where I cried, praying anyone would notice something was wrong. She looked directly at the jury, then at the camera that wasn't supposed to be there, as if speaking through the lens to the world outside. "You think we come out stronger after the storm? But sometimes we just come out quieter, more careful, more haunted." Her voice didn't break. It sharpened. I learned to smile in interviews while my soul begged me to leave. I learned to accept flowers from the same hands that threatened to break me. She swallowed hard. Diddy didn't just hurt me. He erased me slowly. He made me question my worth, my instincts, my voice. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. And when I finally left, I wasn't sure there was anything left to save. She took one more breath, but I found something. Beneath the silence, beneath the fear, I found my truth. And no one gets to take that from me again. The gallery didn't move. It was as if her words pinned every person to their seat. The judge leaned back, visibly shaken, unsure how to close a moment that felt more like history than testimony. The prosecutor nodded faintly. "The witness may step down, Your Honor." Jennifer rose. Her heels touched the courtroom floor, and this time, they didn't echo. They thundered. She walked past the defense table, past the cameras, past the whispers and headlines and years of silence. And when she reached the doors, she didn't look back because she didn't have to. The truth wasn't trapped anymore. It wasn't hidden in whispers or sealed behind fear. It was out, public, permanent, and powerful. For the first time in over 2 decades, Jennifer Lopez walked out of a courtroom not as someone's plus one, not as a pop star, but as a woman standing fully in her own name, her own story, her own strength. Behind her, the heavy courtroom doors sealed shut, but the silence they left behind said everything. It was louder than any verdict could be. Inside, no one moved. Not the judge, not the jury, not even Diddy, especially not Diddy. He sat frozen at the defense table, fingers locked to the edge, knuckles white, jaw clenched. A man who had built his name on being unshakable now looked small, not because of scandal, not because of evidence, because of a woman's voice. A voice he once believed he owned. And behind those locked courtroom doors, Jennifer didn't rush, didn't hide behind handlers, didn't shield herself with sunglasses or a team. She walked slowly, deliberately, like someone who finally remembered who she was. Outside, the world had already shifted. Crowds gathered, reporters swarmed, cameras rolled for hours, even though what mattered most had already happened. Inside, what they missed couldn't be captured on film. It had to be heard, and for those who heard it, it wouldn't be forgotten. Back in the courtroom, the judge cleared his throat. "This court will now recess before jury deliberations," he said. Even his voice felt slower, like he too was still absorbing what had just happened. The jurors stayed in their seats long after they were dismissed, eyes still fixed on the witness stand, the same stand where others had once deflected, minimized, denied, but not today. Today, it became something else entirely, a reckoning, a reclaiming, a confessional. One juror, a woman in her 50s, leaned over to the man beside her and whispered, "That wasn't testimony. That was liberation." Outside, Jennifer made her way to the car. No security in sight. No entourage. Just her. The paparazzi surged. Microphones flying. Questions poured out. "Do you regret saying all that under oath? Will this affect your career? What would you say to women still too afraid to speak?" Jennifer didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She simply looked into the cameras. Calm, unflinching. And in that single look, every question was answered. Because when you've carried the truth for 20 years and finally speak it in full, you don't owe anyone anything else. Back inside, Diddy's attorney leaned close, whispering urgently, but Diddy didn't respond. He just stared at the empty witness chair. Haunted by it, he'd once controlled everything. The music, the headlines, the room, but not that chair. Not anymore. That chair, now empty, was the most dangerous place in the courtroom because it had become something else, a mirror, and what he saw in it was himself, exposed, unfiltered. UNSPUN. 3 days passed. The verdict still pending, but the story had already broken free. It spread like wildfire through social media, news broadcasts, podcasts, living rooms, and quiet corners of people's hearts. Jennifer Lopez's testimony wasn't just viral. It was visceral. It didn't trend because it was shocking. It trended because it was true. For the first time, her name stood alone, not beside a man, not on a red carpet, but as a symbol of survival, raw, unfiltered, defiant. Back in court, proceedings resumed, but the questions had changed. The jury wasn't just asking about timelines or facts. They were asking about patterns, about power, about fear. The prosecutor could feel it. The atmosphere had shifted. This wasn't about one woman and one man anymore. This was about the system, the silence, and what it takes to finally break it open. The defense tried to shift the narrative. They brought in industry voices, spoke of Diddy's philanthropy, his legacy. They played highlight reels, spoke in past tense, as if trying to preserve a version of him that no longer existed. But no one could unhear what Jennifer had said. No one could unsee the strength in her eyes when she said, "I'm done bargaining with silence." On the final day, as closing arguments wrapped, the judge addressed the room. His voice was firm but heavy. "This case is not about celebrity," he said. "It is not about fame. It is about truth, about credibility. And whether silence bought with power is a form of consent or a cry for help." He looked at the jury. "You've heard the evidence. Now you must decide which voice carries more weight, the one that demanded silence or the one that finally broke it." The jury filed out. Hours passed, and when they returned, the room held its breath. But Jennifer wasn't there. She didn't need to be. Her presence wasn't in the gallery anymore. It was in the wood grain of the witness stand, in the air still thick with her truth, in the hearts of 12 strangers who would never see power the same way again. Whether the verdict found Diddy guilty or not, it no longer held all the meaning, because Jennifer Lopez had already done what few ever dared. She walked into a courtroom, lit a match, and set fire to an empire built on silence. And whether justice came stamped by a jury or not, she had already delivered her own, not in secret, Not in whispers, not through headlines, but under oath. With no cameras, just truth. The kind that doesn't fade, the kind that doesn't flinch, the kind that lives forever.